Okay, with that, everyone, welcome to the 2024 Christmas Summit. We're going to get started today with how to build custom xLights models with Michael Stoffregen from Showstopper Sequences. In my opinion, the best sequencer out there. And with that, Michael, do you want to do a break in between the two sessions? I'll give you a 10-minute warning.
Um, yeah, let's do that just for people to, some people may want to transition in or out. Plus, you know, morning coffee. Let
Yep.
everybody do that. That'd be
Okay.
fine.
Then with that, recording has started and we will begin. All yours, Michael.
Okay. Let me get my slides up here. We'll see if I can actually start this. Okay, looks like maybe bad allocation. That's the thing about using open office. Anyway, I'll skip over that and just get to things for you. My name is Mike Stoffregen, primary sequencer with Showstopper Sequences. I have actually been sequencing since 2006. Did 10 years with Lightorama, and then switched to xLights in 2016 and have been sequencing in xLights since then. One of the things that maybe some people know, maybe some people don't know, is that we actually started out with our house probably being, I want to say 70-80% custom. Let me get to where I can share some things with you here. If I can actually get to, there we go. We started out, I want to say probably shortly after, I don't know if you can see this. Can you see that graphic image, my little hand drawing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just want to make sure. I never know what's actually showing up. All right, so this right here is just a hand drawing I did of kind of the concept that I wanted. As you can see, there's really nothing there that would be
Actually, we're seeing
stuff.
your grid, your Excel sheet.
You're seeing the Excel sheet. Okay, hang on. Stop that share. Yeah, I want to share something else. That's what I want to share. There we go. My earthen view. There we go. All right, so this is the hand drawing that I started with. I want to say it was probably shortly after the Grinch with Jim Carrey came out, and started playing with some ideas of what I would like our house to actually look like at some point. Um, Let me get to some other images that will show you some of the drawings that we actually had. I cleverly put everything in VCS 2024. This is another drawing. Hopefully you can see it, of a window covering. Again, this one, we basically just had the concept. And so I would play with it, draw it over and over and over again until I got something that I actually liked. But again, it's something that you had to actually customize. There's nothing out there that was like that. So what we ended up with, when it's all said and done, we get to that picture. Okay, that's kind of what our house still looks like. There's been some changes. I've got a virtual matrix above the door. The spiral tree to the right is no more because I can't find any clear plastic strips for it. The matrix on the far right is gone. But that's basically what we had when we first started. All these different models that were up here that we had to create. So how did we go about doing that? Well, at the time, there weren't as many tools available. And a lot of people, said, well, why don't you just use a spreadsheet? All right, so that's kind of what I did. And to give you some idea of how you can create a model with a spreadsheet, I'm going to stop that share. I'm going to start a new one. All right, this is one that I'd previously done. It's the top of one of the props, and you can see it's just a grid, and I numbered where the actual pixels were. It's kind of an approximation. Let me start a new one here and give you some idea of how you can do this. One of the easiest ways to do it is to insert a picture as a background into it, and then you just basically follow that that image. Now I'm just going to bring this up again. Let me get to where I'm at. All right, so this brings the image in eventually. And one of the issues you have, okay, you can see here the pixels, and the way that this this prop runs is the pixels start in the left-hand corner with 1, and then they basically just incrementally across the top, they reach the center, and then they loop back down with the folds like that. When you put an image in a background, and I haven't done it as background because it's a little easier to manipulate when it's just an image, one of the things that you've got to do is you've got to get it big enough so that your grid will actually match up fairly close to your pixels. And you'll also need to, on the grid itself, is you'll need to change the width, like the default width on Quattro Pros, like I think 9 characters wide. You're probably going to want to drop that down to 3 or 4, depending upon how many pixels you have. And then you just go in and you will number them in xLights. Let me see if I can. I'm going to check this out for right now and show you what this actually looks like in xLights. All right, that right there, if we go in, that's our house layout. This is what it actually looks like in xLights itself. And so that's selected, and if I go into the model data, all right, you'll see there that it starts down here at the lower left, and we've got the angle. Again, though, I know these little white dots do not show up that well. I'm going to try to make it a little bigger for you. Okay, you'll see the dots go up there, and then it swoops back down, basically like you would expect it to. And again, the numbering starts on the left, goes up to the top in the center, and then we get our swags that come back down. That is the bottom of those swags. Now, when I first started out, you know, it wasn't necessarily, you weren't necessarily able to put an image back behind when I first started playing with xLights. But one of the things that you can do now is you can start, and let me put in a background image. It won't be that one because it's a little big. Let me get one that's a little more reasonable. All right, now, when you put in an image, you're going to need to match your height and width to what you've got. So I'm just going to put a large number in there. Let xLights do its thing. Which did not do what I wanted it to do. As you can see, this is not the preferred way to do these things. Anytime you put a graphics back behind there, it just slows everything down while xLights tries to deal with it. But the idea is basically this. As soon as I get some kind of control back. What you're going to do is use, and you can see the holes, they're nice and big in this. You'd use those holes to determine where you're actually going to get your pixels. All right, so what I found is that it's just awkward. You know, it's not a good interface. It's just an awkward way to do it. There's better ways. And so that's what I wanted to just show you, you know, that you could do it this way, but I would only do it with very small images, very small types of props. All right, so let me stop that share. I'm going to get back to another share. All right, on the top of our house, we have a matrix. And get over to that. Hang on a second here. And this is the actual model for the matrix itself that sits on the roof. This is the left side of the roof that kind of slopes down to a valley here. It's got two valleys there. There is a peak where you see those yellows starting. There's a peak there, and then there's individual panels. Now these panels are actually 4 foot by 8 foot, and so if you look at the numbering, and I'll try to highlight that for you, is there's 288 pixels per panel. They're on 4-inch centers. And what I just highlighted, and you see it in black, is one panel. And then the second panel is offset, that's there. Third one is offset, it's there, etc. and so forth. That's on the right side of the house itself. On the left side, the panels start here. That's one, and then they start to become a little more custom here. That's another panel. And then that right there is the last panel on that side. And to give you some idea of what it looks like, that's basically going in and entering in those numbers, those pixel counts to create that. Over here on the left, you see the little what looks like shingles. I use that to establish the pattern I would need to create a shingles submodel. And let me show you what the end result of that is. Hang on a second here. This. All right, and you can see the matrix on top of the house. There's some stuff on the top. You know, got some of the little 2-foot arches there. That kind of gives you an idea of what it looks like when it's really going on. Let me stop that. Open another file, and this file, you can actually see the shingles, the submodel shingles on the top of the roof. All right, so let me stop that. So here's generally what I would recommend for you if you are going to create a model. Anytime you have a large one, like that, specifically a matrix, I would recommend that you get an Excel spreadsheet or an analog. I use Quattro Pro just because I've had the program for a long time. But it does basically the same thing as an Excel spreadsheet, and you put your numbers in there. Then I would recommend, if you have something small that you want to create an image for or those things for, I would recommend that you go ahead and put that image as a backdrop in xLights and then do that there. Now, let me see if I can get my xLights. I may have to reboot it, but we'll see. Yeah, we're going to abandon that. No, we're good on xLights. There's some things that I want to show you about xLights that's kind of neat. One of the things that you can do is you can create custom models from the native models that are up here. And the reason why you can do that is because these things can be manipulated. For example, let me take the tree down here. I'm going to put a tree in. And we'll let xLights catch up with that. All right. And I'm going to make that tree 180 degrees. And I'm going to change the bottom to top ratio to 0. All right, now let's say you've got a skirt that's a that goes around a tree. Now you can create a matrix, or if that's what it is, it's a matrix. You can create that by manipulating that and putting it on there. Let me see what we've got here. Let me change some things here. We've got 16 strings. I'm going to change that to, say, 48. And instead of 50, I'm going to change that to 10. Okay, now it looks a little bit more like a matrix that you would put underneath your tree. You can change the perspective on that. Okay, and you can change the perspective to get it to match a little bit closer to what your tree is in terms of curvature. But that's something that you can always do with a mega tree, is you can make something like that, and that's how it will actually appear. Is it's got that curvature to it, and it's really very nice. Okay, another one. This little, delete that model. I get a lot of questions about my little twig tree right down here. And this twig tree, if we go in and look at it, it's actually a tree model. And all I did was I flattened it out. So let me create this tree. Again, I'm going to switch it to a 180. All right, and don't need that many branches. So it's 8 branches, and let's put 25 pixels. Okay, so if I were to take that, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy it and paste it. Make it a little bigger. Okay, so to create the tree that's down here, what I did was I went through and I created 4 nestings, just like that. And then for the top one, I created the top one, and then what I did was I exported it. All right, so I got it here. I took that model, right click on it, and exported it as a custom xLight model. After I did that, I deleted it. Yeah, I want to delete it. And then I brought it back in. And after I brought it back in, went to the model data, shrink this down. Okay, I shrunk the space down so that you could see what the pixel numbers and everything are on that. And then what I did was I went in and increased the height. Now it adds those spaces down onto the bottom. So when that happens, you've got to reposition your pixels. So you highlight everything. You'll go back up to A1 on the left-hand side. That's how you know you got everything. There you go. Okay, so cut that. I'm going to go down to, I think I added about 38, so I'm going to do it about 34 or so. And now I'm going to paste that. So I pasted it down where it's lower in the makeup. And then I went in and added, see, my last one is 80. And so I added pixels into the center. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So about 10 in. And just manually entered in the pixels that make up the center spike. Okay, I'm not going to do all of it, but I'll do that. And we just tell it OK. Okay, now I got to find my center spikes data. Let me see what happened there. Okay, just not very big on the top because there's only 5 of them. But that gives you some idea of how I created this top model. If I'd have put more pixels on there, it would have been a little bit easier. But you take your custom, you take it, you drop it out, make it into just a custom model instead of a native, and then you add whatever pixels you need to it to bring it in. And that's how I got the top crest. Give you some idea on that. And delete those. Okay, and I'll show you the actual picture of what it looked like. So it's a little tighter than what I had on the other one. But you can see that's basically how I put it together to get that top crest on that. And by the way, that tree is actually just an old artificial tree where I took the needles off and replaced it with PEX, and then just zip tied pixels to the PEX itself. All right, so that's how you can manipulate in 2D. Let me show you something that's kind of neat that I recently did, and I'm going to switch over to 3D. Now my layout is flat, as you can see, because I don't sequence in 3D simply because it's just not required for what I do. But let me show you something that's kind of neat. Did this with developing some models for a fireworks piece. All right, so I'm going to bring out create a tree, and I'm going to switch back now to just 2D on that. Find my tree again. It's got to be somewhere. Okay, tree's right here, and I'm going to flatten it out just a little. Then I'm going to copy it. And paste it. Okay, then I'm going to take that one and I am going to flatten it out more. I'm going to paste another one. But this one, I'm going to rotate. So I create the top part of the fireworks. And let me flatten these a little bit. Not that much. Thank heavens for Control Z, right? What does not want that? And then with the fireworks, there was also just an additional line that went on the top. So I just created a single line, brought it over here. I think it had about 20 nodes on it. And that went in the center like that. All right, so when we switch over to 3D, we have kind of a neat representation of the fireworks model that we need. And you get a real good idea of how the effects are going to actually work on that when you can do that. Now, I will tell you, you don't sequence to this grouping of models. You have to have a shadow model. You can either use just a basic spiral. I mean, not a spiral, but basically trying to find the word. You can create a new, if you will, with all the spokes, pinwheel. And when you create the pinwheel, then you just line up you just line up everything according to the pixels. And then you could also do just a matrix where the starting pixel of every rod or every line is actually on the left-hand side, and then you sequence to those. Okay, so those are some examples of how you can manipulate the xLights tools and use some other things. Since we're going to break this up in a little bit of sections, I'm going to go ahead right now, stop the share, and see if anybody has any questions before we go on.
Michael, there was a question about how you group those, the tree that you did, the twig tree, and I'm going to assume it's the same way as doing the firework.
Let me show you. I'll go back to that. Let me just share my xLights again.
Oh, looks like we lost Mike there for a minute. I'm going to pause recording while he's gone, and then comes back, I'll start it again.
So there's a couple ways to group different stuff like that, especially when you have multiple objects. One is you simply just capture all of them and group them, but that may not be the best route for sequencing levels. So give me just a second. I think he accidentally butt dialed me again. The ideal of shadow models is probably foreign to a lot of people, but shadow models is probably the best way to get good sequencing. And the way you accomplish shadow models is that each one of your models that you create needs to be in line with each other. And that's a kind of probably out of the purview of this here, but shadow models is a way to overlay a one model over all of your little bitty models, and then you sequence to the big model and let the sequences flow over overlapping channels to the shadow models that you put on your actual props out there. It works in a lot of cases, so that's probably the best answer. But again, I don't think shadow models is something that we want to get into here. Any other questions while Mike's out? Who knows exactly how long he's going to be out? Feel free to unmute. We can just chat and talk about model building. Anybody that has a question.
So Jackie I get confused with the shadow models. So is it like a whole house model with just those particular items, or
a shadow model is an overlap, right, in channels. Let's just pretend you have a tree, right? And on that tree, you need to break it up because this is a huge tree, right? And you have two 8-port controllers, but you need 16. Okay, so what you would end up doing is taking your big tree that you create in xLights, and then you would create 2 small trees or 2 small matrix, it doesn't matter, and you would apply them as shadow models to your actual tree. And there's a way to do that in the model property. When you create them, it'd be a shadow model 4, and then you would choose that. And what that does is that kind of helps to lock them into the channels that the big one is. And then that way, when you put them, you can put your small tree on controller 1, and then your second small tree on controller 2. But you can still sequence to your big tree because the channels will still be the same. Does that kind of help?
Yeah, that does. That helps a lot.
Okay, good deal. Again, feel free to open up your mics and just ask questions.
Hey,
Cena
folks.
has a question. You can unmute and ask your question, Cena.
1 second there. Hey, Carl, what you got?
Okay.
Did Michael just decide he was tired and done?
No,
He had a thunderstorm roll through and knock out his power. So
Oh man! All right. Well,
we're just going to open mic until he gets back.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Andy. Hi, everybody. This is Cena, aka Home Depot Dad. Thank you for hosting this. Very informative. But I had a quick question. So, I also have a lot of custom props, especially with our Halloween show. And I was wondering, is taking a picture of the back of the prop when it's already had all those pixels in, will that also work to create a model or a submodel?
There's a couple ways to do that. When you say submodels, or that's a little bit different animal. But when you're talking about creating a model, there's a couple ways to do that. And if you already have the lights pushed in, there is a function in xLights where you can video your actual thing. There's a way for it to light up. The caveat is that you want it to be a low brightness and you want it to be in a fairly dark area with no items that reflect. And that's the best way for it to go. And what it does is xLights, you video it while it's playing this sequence that it does. It goes through 1, 2, 3, 4. The only thing is you tell it exactly how many pixels it is, and it will run through that. When you load the video, what it will do is it will take that video and apply where it lights up the best that it can to the grid that you create. So looks like Michael's back.
That was exciting.
I bet.
Yeah, electricity went out for a couple of minutes, and then the PC wouldn't come back on, of course. But no damage that I can tell. We'll find out. We'll see.
Hey, Mike, so we had a question that we was discussing, so I want to ask you if you're going to go over it at all. It may not be in what you're planning, but
no, I heard what you were saying, and no, I was just going to mention it, but I've never used it, just because I've always just gone in and made what I wanted.
Okay, all right. Well, I just wanted to make sure, but I will turn it back over to you. I was just kind of fielding questions as they came in, so.
Okay.
Hopefully that answered your question.
Casey had a question for you, Michael. Casey, you can unmute and ask your question.
My question was just the one surrounding grouping models, just because kind of managing custom models has been a challenge for me as I've tried to build. So I'm just wondering how you're doing that.
Well, when I was so rudely interrupted by God, if you'll enable, Andy, can you enable screen sharing for me again?
Oh, yes, sorry. I'll make those. Let's see if that gives you screen share.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. For example, the one that the first question was when the electricity hit, was this one right here. And what I do is I just group them together. Call it, it's my twig tree. Get to it, find it somewhere. There it is. All right, and you can see it's just them grouped together. And it goes from the bottom to the top on those. And on the roof, I've got these two separated, the left and the right side, but in the layout itself, where I actually do the sequencing, I've just got them grouped together. So I guess my question is, what kind of problems are you having?
So I think you covered it in grouping. So that was kind of my question. So you're actually sequencing on the group of model, not on the individual model. So regardless of how many custom pieces that tree is made up of, you're sequencing on the tree group, not on the individual piece of that custom model.
That's right. But sometimes you can get some really neat effects by changing it to a per model, since it's grouped.
Right.
You know, like on that one, I'll give you a good example. Putting the wave on that twig tree looks very different than, you know, if I put it on the whole model, it looks one way, but if I put it on the individual models, it looks totally different because it's kind of waving by layer instead of on the whole tree. So yeah, I you know, for the most part, I'll just sequence to the whole group. But you know, you can get some neat effects by hitting those individual ones.
Okay, with that, I'm going to say that we are out of time for this session, and we'll pick it back up in a few minutes. Thank you, Michael.